Hey there. Welcome to Toy Talk with Mike and Chad, episode 50.
This is a big one. This is like our first milestone for Toy Talk with Mike and Chad.
Yeah, if I had better editing programs, I would probably add some firework effects and some sounds and stuff. But just imagine it's happening because So
Fireworks.
50 episodes of us just sitting here talking toys.
That's like a big milestone, and
It is.
I was here for the other big milestone, episode 200. That's of Mike's collection.
Yeah, this channel I've been doing it for 4 years. It's called Mike's Collection, but whenever Chad joins me, we just kind of renumber them and we have our own kind of sub channel.
Yeah.
But yeah, all total, I'm getting close to 300 videos on my channel, which includes our 50.
Yeah.
But for us to hit 50 together, that's
super cool.
Yeah, it's a good milestone. Who knew we would get this far? And people still
watch us. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you for watching.
Fireworks.
Please continue to watch. People will probably watch this one because it's going to be another G.I. Joe episode, and those ones tend to be fairly popular compared to some of our other just miscellaneous episodes and what have you. People like to tune into G.I. Joe. There's a rabid G.I. Joe fan base. Which, maybe before we get into talking about our G.I. Joe classified figures, there was some G.I. Joe news that just came out today. Did you hear about it?
I did not.
And by the time you guys are seeing this is old news, because we're filming this on November 30th. But we filmed 3 episodes tonight. This is the third of those 3. And I'm probably going to release these staggered, so this episode probably won't be out until
3 weeks.
Yeah, mid-December. So this will be old news. But tonight, it's brand new. So Super 7 just announced that they are going to be doing O-ring G.I. Joes. They're launching a whole new line.
Like vintage O-ring.
Yeah, which I'm sure it just came out almost before you came over, so I haven't really had time to hear the fan reaction. But I'm going to guess that a lot of people are going to be pretty excited because, Super 7 makes G.I. Joe reaction figures currently, which are the 3 3/4 inch. In fact, I have some right here. Here's Hawk. So they do the 3 3/4 inch G.I. Joes, which is the right size for what a lot of vintage G.I. Joe collectors like. But these guys only have 5 points of articulation. They're like the old Star Wars figures. And I like them. They have really nice sculpts, but they don't move very much. They don't bend at the knees. They don't bend at the elbows, so you can't really sit them in your old Jeeps or anything like that. And anytime I review these, I always get comments by people that say,
they're dumb.
They're dumb. Why do you like them? G.I. Joes are supposed to be super articulated. I want O-ring figures. And so, those people are finally getting what they wanted. Super 7 announced that they are going big with this line. The first figures will be on shelves in fall of 2024. So, it's still a ways away, but that means apparently they just finalized the deal within the past week or so. So
I'm gonna have to look at that when I go home. That's super exciting.
Yeah, and especially I was glad to hear. So they did a video with Pixel Dan, the guy that does all the Masters of the Universe and the Ninja Turtle stuff.
How did I miss that one then?
Well, it just came out. You were probably at work. He did an interview with Pixel Dan, and he said that he doesn't want to just re-release, the original Snake Eyes, original Scarlet, because that's, I think, what Hasbro's mistake is they've gone back to the O-ring a few times over the years, but they kind of just re-release old figures, and, it doesn't really, it's hard to get excited about just buying a figure that's an exact replica of a figure you already have in your collection. But, Brian Flynn of Super 7 said, no, we're going to give you toys that you wanted as a kid, but you didn't get. So that makes me think of characters like Pythona from, the G.I. Joe movie, who, you remember her? She's the
sorceress kind of one?
Yeah, she's kind of the sneaky one with the ponytail. Yeah. We never got a toy of her. And, also Big Lob. He was the guy from the movie that, with the basketball jersey and stuff. And it's just some of these random characters that never, got into the vintage line. And so the fact that that's what they want to focus on, not just rehash old stuff, but expand and give you new stuff, I think it could be really cool. Although my plan is not to collect them. I'll be honest, I'm kind of over O-ring. Like, I loved G.I. Joes when I was a kid. They were my favorite toy. Mm-hmm. That's why I still collect them like crazy, and I'm excited to talk about these new classified figures. But
you're sold on classified right now.
Yeah, and before that, I was collecting the 4-inch figures for like about 10 years. And I really got into that. I started buying all the convention box sets. I spent thousands of dollars on all the figure subscription services. I have a really expansive 4-inch line. And now I'm into the 6-inch line. And I'm buying the reaction figures. For them to reintroduce the O-ring figures, it's just like, I just don't really want to go back down that road. I loved them for their time. And I'm glad that there's still a rabid fan base that is going to get what they've been looking for. But it's easy for me to say that now. When they reveal Wave 1 and it's figures that like I'm like, oh shit, they made that figure. Yeah, I might get sucked in, but my intent right now is to walk away. And I'm hoping that I can, because Super 7 also does their Ultimate G.I. Joe figures, which initially I had pre-ordered all of them. I had all 3 waves on pre-order. But before they actually came out, I canceled my pre-orders. I've seen the reviews online. They're pretty mixed. And I've slowly been getting more and more comfortable with my decision to not collect those. So, yeah. It's always hard to get past that initial pre-order. But once you make peace with it, you're not going to collect it, then they can just keep revealing stuff. And I was like, that's cool. I don't collect that line. And that's what I hope to be able to do with the O-ring figures. Anyway, so yeah, that was kind of exciting news today. But we are going to focus on the 6-inch figures, G.I. Joe Classified. We did a video about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And we reviewed like 13 G.I. Joes, I think, in that video. These things have been coming out fast and furious. And every time we get together, we have another dozen figures to talk about. So we have got 6 figures to talk about today. And I already have 4 more, I think, like in the mail, essentially. So there's Hasbro, there's 3 Python Patrol figures, which they're sending me soon. And also Ripper is in. I got a notification from Big Bad that he's going to be in my pile of loot very soon. So, yeah, 4 more figures I'll probably have in the next couple of weeks. And anyway, let's talk about these 6. So we're going to start with, I don't know if they even number these waves, but there was a wave of like 5 figures. I think it was 5. But it was kind of weird because Buzzer is in this wave.
Yeah.
But we got him ages ago at this point. And we reviewed him in our last episode. And then Ripper is also in this wave. But as I just said, I just got the notification that he's going to soon be in stock. And then these other 3 we've got in the meantime. So it's supposed to be a wave of figures, but waves of figures...
They don't release them in waves.
Yeah, they're supposed to all come out together. But this has been a very weird, staggered wave. So we'll start off with General Hawk, Clayton Abernathy. So...
old Hawk. Oh, Clayton.
So, I've rambled. Why don't you talk about Hawk?
Okay, so, first thing that really annoyed me with this figure is this fucking helmet. Mm-hmm. Like, this helmet is so loose, it doesn't fit on. I know we've talked about other helmets on different figures, like, some are too snug, some are too big, some don't fit properly, some sit too high on their head. His is too big. Like, it looks like it's too wide for his head. It bothers me. I feel like that helmet's gonna fall off. And then again with the goggles.
Yeah. The helmet doesn't bother me, to be honest. I actually kind of like the helmet. What I don't like is the goggles.
Yeah.
Now, the old vintage Hawk had a helmet with the goggles pulled up on top of his helmet, and that was part of the sculpt. You couldn't separate the two. So I appreciate what they did, that they gave you the option to take the goggles off the helmet, and he can actually wear them over his eyes. But in doing so, the goggles are very loose on the helmet. And it's like, one of my biggest complaints about the whole classified line is I have 4 or 5 different versions of the Cobra Viper, and I hate that the goggles, they don't latch into place. So if you look at them funny, the goggles fall off of their helmet. Now, I don't think he's as bad as the Vipers, but it's similar in that the goggles just don't hold on to place very good. but I actually like the fit of the helmet.
Yeah.
It's a softer, rubbery plastic than I was expecting, but I still think it looks okay.
In general, I love the bomber jacket that he's got on. Like, they did a really nice job with that.
Mm-hmm.
He has an uncanny resemblance to Dennis Quaid.
Well, he was played by Dennis Quaid in the movie, so...
I know, but, like...
Yeah, it makes sense that they would kind of lean into that, maybe.
It does, I guess. He's a nice figure. I'll give him that. Dennis Quaid and all.
I love this figure. I was a big fan of General Hawk, although notice his arm feels really loose there. But yeah, I had the original General Hawk. Now, mind you, the first Hawk figure came out in 1982.
Yeah.
But he wasn't really General Hawk yet at that point in time, and my brother Doug had that figure.
Was he Clayton still?
Yeah, and to be honest, I don't remember what the file card said. They might have even called him General Hawk, but like he just wore plain olive green, just like all the other guys, and he had blonde hair. He didn't look like anything special. He wasn't really obviously the leader of the team or anything. But when the second version came out in like 85 or 86, yeah, by that point, it was like, okay, he's got a whole new look. Now he's got brown curly hair instead of short blonde hair. He's got a bomber jacket. He's got his own distinct vibe. And then he started appearing in the comic books and the cartoon and stuff as like, this guy is the general. He's the leader.
G.I. Joe.
Yeah. So I had version 2. So when we were kids, we basically used them like they were separate characters. So like I had General Hawk, who led our G.I. Joe team, and my brother just had Hawk, the blonde guy who was just hanging around. So, yeah, it was nice for me as the younger brother to have that power trip and to have the leader of G.I. Joe. And so, yeah, I've always liked Hawk. I liked that figure a lot. Maybe one of the reasons why the helmet doesn't bother me so much is that the vintage figure... Did you have this guy when you were a kid?
I want to say no.
He's broken in half, unfortunately. But this is how the helmet fit on the vintage...
No, I didn't have him.
So, I'm so used to it, it doesn't even really bother me, but the helmet did sit on his head really big.
Yeah.
And...
But at least it, like, stays on there.
Oh, it stays on really good. So much so that actually you kind of worry about scraping the paint off his hair. But yeah, the goggles are just they're not even painted. They're just like, they're green goggles. Which
was a problem with the reaction figure too, wasn't it? You were worried about the...
No, the goggles look nice on him, but the helmet I can't get off his head.
It comes off. Well, no, it fucking doesn't.
Yeah, I think the helmet on this reaction figure is supposed to come off because the advertisements show it without its helmet on, but it feels like it's glued in place.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I think this figure does a really good job of capturing the look of that vintage one, and things like the goggles that used to be sculpted on the helmet, now they're removable. On the sculpted figure, he used to have a little gun with a holster sculpted on his chest. Yeah. Now the holster is a separate piece. The gun's a separate piece that comes out of the holster. It's just, like a lot of these classified figures, when they're done right, it takes everything you loved about the vintage toy and just adds that extra detail, goes that extra mile. I love it.
Now, I will say, I'm not as experienced with Joes as you are. Specifically, the classified ones that are coming around. Yeah. Sometimes I feel like they lose some of their charm when they have all these straps. It's almost too busy.
Sometimes, yeah.
This is a nicely executed holster.
What I find is the 4-inch figures that I talked about earlier. So the vintage ones like that, a lot of those extra details were part of the skull. They basically had a loose gun in their hand, and that was it. All the other little things were sculpted on. In the 4-inch line that ran from about 2007 to about 2019 or so, I think, that was where I think they had a bigger problem, because they tried to make all this stuff, like the holsters and everything, as a separate piece. And it looked a little wonky on those figures because 4 inches wasn't quite big enough, so everything fit a little goofy. You make that joke, every second episode. Here
That's okay, sorry. Anyways,
But yeah, I think so. Maybe it doesn't look perfect on this figure, but I think in my mind it looks so much better than it used to look on the 4-inch figure when they tried to have that floating web gear. That it's a step in the right direction. So even though it might still not be perfect, I think it looks pretty good.
Yeah, he's a solid pickup for sure.
But yeah, I do know what you mean. There are a couple of figures in the classified line
that so busy.
You kind of just wish that a strap was just sculpted onto them rather than floating around loose and stuff. But yeah, with Hawk, I think it looks pretty good. And it always gives you the option you could take that off if you really didn't like it floating around on him. But yeah, pretty cool.
General Dab.
Yep.
I love those old...
Yep. The reaction figures can't dab.
I know. I love those old vintage.
Alright, so this one here, this is a character that there was no vintage figure. This is Agent Helix. Spoiler alert, I love this figure too.
Me too.
Yeah, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are this is kind of a weird story. So we had these guys pre-ordered on Hasbro Pulse. And they weren't available and somehow showed up at our local GameStop, and it's like, what the hell?
Well, it's just one of those things here with this wave particularly seems very disjointed in that we had them, like, I usually pre-order them from both places because I pre-order from Big Bad because that's just kind of my safety place. That's where I've been ordering for years. But GameStop, now that they carry all these G.I. Joes and stuff too, the manager at GameStop, he's my friend, and he just orders the stuff for me sight unseen without telling me he did it. So sometimes Big Bad stuff shows up first. Sometimes he calls me and says, hey, I got your G.I. Joes in it, and then I cancel my pre-orders.
This time there was no call.
But yeah, this is one of those things, like, so the figures are showing up all over the place in random order, and yeah, I went in and it was like on the shelf or something instead of, and I'm like, oh, this toy, I have it pre-ordered in 2 places, and yet here I am just finding it sitting on the shelf. So yeah, I grabbed her and... Anyway.
She's really cool. I love the face sculpt on this one. I love the ab crunch too. So this one seems like mine too. She's really loose around the legs.
That's what he said?
You say that like every second episode.
I do. That's the first time I've ever said that.
I know. Just trying to be a dick. Anyways. Yeah, no, she's super cool. I love her. I don't really have much to say because I don't know too much about her.
Well, I'll give you
she's an agent.
Yeah, I'll give you a little bit of background. So she is like a relatively new character. So she was introduced in 2009. And what's interesting about her is, so her name, Agent Helix, that comes from the fact that you're probably familiar with the video game producer Helix.
Yeah.
So when the G.I. Joe Rise of Cobra movie, the first one with Channing Tatum, came out, there was a game...
Rip Duke.
Yeah. Spoiler. Made by Helix. They made the game.
Yeah.
And there was something along the lines of, like, they had asked if they could create a character or something, and I don't know if there was, like, a deal or something, but anyway, Hasbro let them. They're like, yeah, you have to put all these existing characters, so you have to put, Heavy Duty and Duke and all that stuff, but like you can create a new character, and they created a character named Helix. So the first time she ever appeared was a character you could play in the video game and run around with, and you're like, who is this character? And then they made a toy of her. This is the only previous Agent Helix toy, and yeah, it's it's a cool toy, but she's not nearly as attractive as this one.
No,
is.
God no, she's hideous.
Yeah, she's a little rough looking. That's the thing. Even on those 4-inch scale, it was a little harder to capture a really nice likeness on a person's face. So, in my mind's eye, I always really liked Helix, but the toy didn't really live up to my expectations. And then they introduced her in the comic books, and I was kind of surprised too, because they introduced her in the IDW comic books, which was kind of their own modern, contemporary G.I. Joe universe. But even Larry Hama, who was still writing the Real American Hero comic books that continued the old storyline from the 80s, and he tended to stick with the characters that he knew from back in the day. He introduced Helix into his universe, kind of separate from the IDW universe, and he kind of gave her some pretty prominent stuff to do as well. And I might get this wrong, but she has like some sort of high level like autism or something, which allows her to be like a really good fighter. I think it's sort of like the Marvel character Taskmaster, whose whole deal is like he sees your moves and he can mimic them after seeing them once, and she has some sort of similar capability due to her her autism, as that makes her a very skilled ninja. And so yeah, she's just an interesting character. But yeah, this is a character that could have very easily been in the video game and then forgotten. You know, a one-off from Helix, and Hasbro could have said, she's not our creation, we'll just like forget about her. But it's really nice to see her carry on, and now she's just integrated into the G.I. Joe universe. Alright, so this next one. So by the way, you don't have your figures here with you, obviously, because we're at my house. But you have all these figures at home.
Yes.
So the next one we've got is Shockwave, the G.I. Joe SWAT trooper. So did you have this guy when you were a kid?
I want to say I did.
I'll show you. I've got the old one here.
Again, I was so young that I didn't really... I didn't know their names as well as you do. Yes, I did have him.
So here he is. That's my vintage Shockwave that I had as a kid.
He's still in one piece.
Barely. You can feel how loose he is.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if he snapped in your hand. Like that washer.
I don't want to...
Yeah. And plus, unfortunately, he's kind of yellowing. Like the light blue plastic is getting yellow.
I'm colorblind, so it just looks like he's a different... He's like a turquoise-ish.
Well, he's 2 shades of blue, like that guy. But yeah, this guy has got some very clearly yellowing segments, which is a huge bummer. But anyway, so you did have him as a kid.
Yeah, this guy's sick. I love him. I love the riot shield. I love I was gonna say baklava. It's not a dessert. I love his balaclava.
Yes.
The hat option is nice. I wasn't sure if I was going to display mine with the hat or not, but I put him on. And he's got that upward sheath that I like on his chest.
Yeah.
Like the knife.
Seems like every character has that. Ever since you pointed it out to me.
Yeah, now there's...
A few episodes ago, you were like, this character's really cool because he's got a knife sheath that points upward. And now literally every
Well, to me, that's more natural than... grabbing a knife from here.
I know. You say that as frequently as you say that's what she says.
Sorry.
But I get it. You like that feature, and obviously Hasbro does too, because you're seeing it a lot.
Like the combat gear, his boots, his shin pads, everything. And
that's right from the vintage toy. Yeah. He had that knife facing upward, but you can barely tell because it's not painted. It's just part of the sculpt.
Yeah, he's a really cool figure. So again, this is another one we had ordered through Hasbro Pulse, and we were randomly in GameStop one night. You were going to pick up a Marvel Legend character, and then him and Buzzer were on the shelf, and I'm like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah, and I'll just tell you, so I love Shockwave.
Yeah.
It seems a little disingenuous to say he's my favorite G.I. Joe.
Because he was 89?
88.
88.
And, I was on board with G.I. Joe from the very first wave. So I was collecting G.I. Joes in 1982 when I was only, 4 years old. And, I had the first Snake Eyes figure. So, yeah, he was probably my favorite. Yeah. And then as it went on, I liked a lot of the characters with masks and stuff. I really liked Barbecue. Yep. And I had a lot of probably favorites over the years. But soon as Shockwave came out in 1988, which was only 2 years before I stopped collecting G.I. Joes, but I must have really got a lot of use out of him for those 2 years, because as soon as I got him, he was instantaneously the biggest badass of my G.I. Joe team. Snake Eyes who. He came in and he fucked up everybody. Yeah. So and when we'd play, me and my brother would spend sometimes a whole all March break playing one battle over the course of the week, and guys would get killed off, and by the end half my Joe team was decimated, but Shockwave was always the last guy to kick down the door of Cobra headquarters and basically beat up Cobra Commander and save the day. So this was kind of my ultimate G.I. Joe. So I am beyond stoked to finally get him and to see him done so well.
Yeah, he's super cool. I don't know what else I can say about him. I
Yeah. He's awesome.
I think he was around 80s. When did I start with Joe's? I was born in 82, so I think I started in 86, probably 86, 87, because that was right around Turtles, Thundercats, and Joe's were still there.
Yeah. And, so he's got, for accessories, he's got this nice riot shield.
Yeah, it's wicked.
Which is new for him. Like, it's the kind of thing, he's a SWAT trooper. It makes sense that he would have had it. But...
Did you find it a pain in the ass to get his arm in there, though?
Yes.
Like, his I think this figure, all his joints were kind of stiff. I don't know if yours were. I don't typically heat mine.
No.
So, his hand would not bend at all. It was difficult to even get his gun in his hand.
Like, I have his shield probably in his wrong hand, because you can see he's supposed to be holding
with the right
grip. And then, but yeah, I have it in his wrong arm, but whatever. And he's got a nightstick, which is also kind of cool, because that's a new thing he didn't have.
Yeah.
The vintage figure had a gun and a knife and a backpack.
Yeah.
And this guy, he has no backpack, but he doesn't need those are overrated most of the time. But he's got the shield, he's got the knife, which can be sheathed, he's got a gun that can be 2 guns that can be holstered on either side, and then he's got his nightstick there. He's got the removable ball cap. Yeah, I think he's fantastic. Mm. And I'll be honest, as much as I love that vintage figure, I always did find his head seem kind of long. Like, his head is kind of big. I don't know if you think that too, but... And don't make any more...
I'm not. I'm just like, I can't unsee that now.
Yeah, I always found that about him. Like, I made me think, I bet this guy's probably ugly if he takes his mask off, because he's got a big Jay Leno chin or something. So that... I never saw his face. I don't think they showed it in the comp. Although, actually, you know what? They did make Wave... There was another version of Shockwave that had a mask on later on, after I stopped collecting G.I. Joes. But, yeah, back when I had that toy and I played with him, I always wondered, I wonder what he looks like under there. But I kind of don't want to know, because his face was so elongated. Yeah. This guy here doesn't have that. So now I can imagine he's handsome under there. It's like, yeah, look at this chiseled jaw on this guy.
Look at Jason Faria.
I don't know. Is that your man crush? I don't know, Jason Faria.
That's Jason Shockwave Faria.
Oh, that's his real name. Yeah. Okay.
We're on a first name basis.
Yeah. All right. And does the package say? Does it say Jason Shockwave Faria? Yeah. Is that how it's listed on the packaging? All right. One last thing I want to mention with this guy though is, so in the same way that I get excited about the 6-inch classified figures now, when I was collecting the 4-inch G.I. Joe figures a few years back, every time new figures were announced, I was super excited. And Shockwave was one of those characters that was really high on my list. Like, oh man, I can't wait to get an updated 4-inch Shockwave. And so then when I got that figure, he's cool, but I was disappointed in that he just didn't quite live up to my expectations. I thought there was a lot of better 4-inch figures. For one thing, his vest, it almost looks like it's a crop top, because it doesn't come up. It doesn't come down to his belt, which is kind of weird. And I just found, the way his joints, he reuses parts from other figures, and even though he came maybe 2 years into the line, he uses a lot of parts from earlier in the line, which aren't so great. So I think it's an okay figure. But for my favorite character, I was like, this isn't so great. Which was even more pronounced when there's another SWAT G.I. Joe character that came out years after him. He first came out, I think, in 2003. Named Widescope. And to be honest, I don't even know. Widescope, they might have just did that because they lost the name to Shockwave or something. Sometimes they do that. So, anyway, in the modern 4-inch line, we got Shockwave, who's the SWAT guy in blue that everybody knows, and the figure is okay. And then a couple years later, when they were doing a lot better job, they made Widescope. And it's such a better figure.
Oh, yeah.
And it made me mad because I'm like, I like Widescope, but he's basically a knockoff of Shockwave. And I didn't like that my Widescope was so much better than my Shockwave. It didn't seem fair. So I've always wanted Shockwave to get a redo. And he didn't get a redo in the 4-inch line. But here he is in the 6-inch line.
And he looks spectacular.
Yeah, they finally did him justice. This guy is absolutely going to be on my best of the year list. I don't know how high up he's going to be, but he's a shoo-in.
At least he doesn't have a long head, too.
Yeah.
Like, that's a normal sized head.
Normal shaped head. He looks
that other guy's
it was long,
terrible. Yeah.
Anyway, so very cool. And to be honest, Hawk and the Helix are also contenders.
All top notch, yeah.
They're all contenders for my best of the year. Like, when I do my best of the year list, which I'm thinking about because it's coming up, it's December. I want to be conscious of, like, I want my list to be diverse. Yeah, like, so I want to have a Transformer on there. I want to have a Marvel Legend. I want to have a He-Man. But at the same time, I'm not going to skew my... I'm not going to leave out...
decisions based on...
Yeah, and I don't know. I'm almost a little worried that my list might be 20... My top 20 might all be G.I. Joes. Like, the G.I. Joes are just so good.
They are.
Like, I thought when I'm between Shockwave and Helix and... just looking at the shelf there, like Range Viper and Buzzer and I don't know. There's
Snow Job
and the Snow Serpent and oh man, it's just so many. Like they're so good. Anyway, so we have 3 more figures to talk about.
And these are the ones that are gonna get my blood pressure going.
Yeah, because you don't have these guys yet.
Nope, we ordered them at the exact same time from Walmart, and fuck Walmart.
Yep, Walmart does not like you.
No.
Because I got mine right when I was supposed to, and you are still waiting.
Mine are still delayed.
And I've had mine for a few weeks now. So, we'll dive into them. So, first up is the AlleyViper. I don't know if they call this guy the Crimson AlleyViper or not. That's kind of how I've been referring to him, because he's red.
Yeah, he's just a repaint, so...
Yeah, so he's the same AlleyViper figure we got before. The original one was orange and blue, based on the original AlleyViper colors from the vintage line. But they did repaint the AlleyViper in the vintage line after I stopped collecting. So, like, in the 90s, there was a couple more versions of the AlleyViper, and this one is based on kind of one of those later versions.
I don't have the original one in the orange colors.
Oh, no?
No, that was... before my classified days. I'm sure I could still find him somewhere.
Yeah.
This guy is super cool. You probably see me doing this. He's got a lot of weight to him. I like it.
Yeah.
How does he see out of his mask?
I think that might, if he's taking heavy fire, he just flips that down. Maybe he's not intended to be able to see through it. Maybe it's just a temporary...
shot at.
But I don't know. I've wondered that.
He's probably got the shield, though.
With the vintage figure, I wondered the same thing. He's got this completely solid shield that flips down over his face, and I'm like, I don't know.
So he got a harpoon gun?
Yeah, which was cool, because in the vintage figure, the harpoon gun didn't come off his backpack. It was just kind of sculpted in there. But now he comes off, and yeah, he can go all Batman and climb up the side of a building with that thing.
I'm a fan of the helmet.
The helmet's cool.
Yeah, I like this figure.
The shield is cool.
Shield's cool. Love that big embossed Cobra logo.
Yeah, and the shield, again, the old one, the vintage toy, just had a shield, which is all you really need. But this one here, it looks like some sort of tech shield. Like it's got like a computer screen on the inside. So maybe that's how he sees bad guys.
Oh, that's fair.
I don't know. But it's cool.
And what direction's that knife going?
It's going up.
It's going up.
Yeah, you love your up knives.
I do.
And just, even though you don't have an AlleyViper yet, again, I would say you should try and track down the orange guy, because the orange guy was the first one that came out. I think it was 89. So he was also pretty late in my collecting. I only had him for really the last year or so of my collecting. But again, I have fond memories of playing with him as a kid. Because I think probably those last 2 or 3 years that I stopped, just before I stopped collecting, were probably the years I was playing with them the most.
Okay.
But I love the orange and blue one, because that's the one I had as a kid. But I think if I didn't have any nostalgic ties to it, I think the black and red is just objectively cooler.
The color scheme works a lot better than orange and blue.
Yeah, especially because he's supposed to be an urban, like a city trooper. So yeah, if you're going through an urban landscape and you're trying to stay hidden, I don't know why. You're not going
to do it in orange and blue.
Yeah, I don't know why bright orange and blue, almost purple, would be your color choice. This makes much more sense. And it does look great. Yeah, even if you don't track down the orange and blue, I think you'd be pretty happy with this guy.
Eventually, when fucking Walmart sends it to me.
Yeah. So next up, we'll take a look at Shooter. So she's like the G.I. Joe's like sniper. She comes with a big long sniper rifle that's bent all to hell. And then she also...
God, that's terrible.
I know, it's like a big noodle. And then she comes with... I forget to even talk about all the extra knives and guns. They all come with that stuff because they all strap into them and whatever. Yeah. But besides the big sniper rifle, she has like guns and knives. But then she also has, what's kind of interesting, is 3 different haircuts, essentially. So... She's got that. So sort of Lady J had the same thing. Same as Orana.
Yeah.
So instead of giving you different heads, they just give you different hairs. So
I like the gas mask.
One set of hair has a gas mask on.
That's cool.
And then another set of hair has just kind of this weird like middle part. Her hair has braids in it. And they all look good. Like I thought when I first got the figure, I was like, well, I'm not going to display her with the gas mask, obviously. Because she's got a pretty face sculpt. I like her. Yeah. And I thought, well, this hair with her, she's got kind of bangs hanging. I was like, she looks great. Why would I put her with this braided head on her like when it already looks so good? But then I put this braided head on her, and I was like, that looks really good too. Like I don't know which one I like better. So
I'm kind of impartial. I think.
I know, so you see, I would like see there
this one.
Yeah, but then when you put this on, you're like, oh, damn, she looks good like that too. So
Jada Pinkett. Oh, fuck. Okay.
Yeah,
I see your point.
So I don't know which one I'm going to display her with, but
this one kind of almost makes her look more badass.
Yeah. So it's a really cool feature, and I'm glad they stay on because that would be my biggest worry is like when you give all these girls swappable hair. If the hairs were falling off all the time, that's not good. But they stay in place pretty good.
Is she a vintage character? Or
No.
No, okay. What's going on with her shoes? It looks like she's wearing slippers.
Yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting choice. The sneakers.
For a sniper, because I feel like you'd have to run as a sniper at some point.
So, I would like Helix. Like, this is the only figure of Shooter that ever existed prior. And this came out...
In 2009?
No, later. So, she's part of that 4-inch... line of figures that existed from 2007 to 2019, but she probably came out around 2017 or so. Like she was very late in the game. Yeah, so Shooter has an interesting backstory in that when the original G.I. Joe team came out, the first wave of toys in 1982, there was 13 G.I. Joes. Everybody refers to them as the original 13. And those were the guys that all wore, for the most part, they were all just green army men. The Snake Eyes, Scarlet were the kind of the different ones. But anyway, the first issue of the G.I. Joe comic book, there was a shot where, like the big wigs, I think it was the guys that actually control G.I. Joe were called the Jugglers. These are this like, I don't know how to describe them, this group of military officials, probably like the Department of Defense or whatever, they get hawked to lead this team of G.I. Joes or whatever. So in a very first issue of G.I. Joe, they shows them walking into a room or something and say, we want you to assemble these guys. This is going to be our team of elite G.I. Joe soldiers. And that's when they show a computer screen with all these characters, and you see Breaker, Short Fuse, Snake Eyes. But because it was in panels, you had to have an even number. So you couldn't have the original 13. So there was a fourth panel, and it said Shooter, but the character's hand was like in front of the picture, obscuring it. So it was literally just intended to fill the screen to make it an even grid. Shooter was never really intended to be a character. And the reason they gave it the name Shooter, because it sounds like a military name, like it sounds like it would be a G.I. Joe. But at the time, the editor-in-chief of Marvel Comics was Jim Shooter. So the artist just put Shooter in there as kind of an inside joke to Jim Shooter. So that's all that was. And then, like 30 years later, Larry Hama decided to address that, and he did a mini-comic called G.I. Joe Declassified, which was supposedly G.I. Joe's first mission, which took place before the first issue of the G.I. Joe comic book.
I think I remember you telling me this before.
And in that comic, all the 13 G.I. Joes had this mission to do, but they didn't know that they had support from a secret 14th member Shooter who was up in the trees covering them with sniper fire so they could complete their mission. And she got killed in the mission unbeknownst to the rest of the team. So she was kind of this unsung hero who helped G.I. Joe complete their first mission, but they never even knew that she was part of their team. And so they kind of gave her that really interesting like backstory. And so now it's cool that she's getting official figures. She's part of the team now.
Crooked sniper rifle and all.
Yeah.
I'm sold on this haircut. Yeah. I think mine's gonna.
It's nice,
get displayed. Yeah.
Yeah. So a really nice figure of a character that is just like I don't know. I love that we're not just getting more of the same. Kind of like what we were talking about with the O-rings that are coming out. Like Super 7 doesn't want to just rehash and give you Gung Ho, Snake Eyes, Stalker. With the classified line, I'm so glad they're not just rehashing. Like I love getting characters like Shockwave from my childhood, but getting characters like Shooter and Helix and stuff really keep the line exciting.
Do you think they're gonna be improved O-rings, or do you think it's still gonna be like old school rubber like they used to be?
I think they'd have to be. I think if you're going through this much trouble to promote that you're bringing back the O-ring and then it comes out and it's something doesn't match the old ones, fans are fickle. They'll say these aren't true O-rings. So I think they have to do it with the old washer. Mm-hmm. And 20 years from now, all those O-ring figures will be rotted apart, but whatever. You can buy replacements. All right, one last figure to talk about.
Yeah.
It's getting late, so let's try and get this over with. So I'll be honest, I don't like this figure as much as Shooter or Helix, but it speaks to the last point there where like they need to add new stuff to refresh the line. This guy here is brand spanking new. Like even Helix and Shooter have history now. They're like 10 years old. 2009 is when Helix was introduced. This guy here, this is the first we're ever seeing him. This action figure is the very first Mole Rat.
Yeah. He was the one that I was looking forward to the most.
He's cool. I like him.
Hasbro, step your fucking game up with these crooked guns, man.
Yeah, the guns are weak.
Like, he's got this disgusting growth on his head.
Yeah, and it's something like... The story is that they're in the mines harvesting dark energon or something. Yeah. So it, like, ties into the Transformers. Which is interesting. I don't know if they're going to pursue that. Like, it makes more sense for them to do that with the smaller figures, because like it's hard to make these guys in scale with any Transformers that would tie into the toy line, because the Transformers have to be enormous. But yeah, it's interesting.
He's cool. I kind of like. He looks like half dead.
Yeah, he's clearly supposed to be like a zombie.
Yeah.
Like that's still a trend. People love zombies.
Yep.
I'm almost surprised
them before they were cool.
Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't just straight up call this guy like zombie, because they would probably sell more of them that way. But he is a mole rat. I don't really know what that means.
I think it's because of the digging.
Yeah. But he has got this kind of purple and orange outfit. His face, which you guys will see when I splice it in, he's got like his face, besides the growth, it's got purple skin, purple lips. His teeth are like pronounced, like he has no lips. Like it's a very zombie-esque face. But then he has all this like crazy, like Akira protrusions or whatever growing out of the side of his head. It's a very interesting look. But he does have an alternate head, so if you don't want to lean into this zombie theme, you don't have to.
It's like a masked head.
Yeah, it's a very cool head. And now he can just be a normal trooper. He doesn't have to be sick or anything. He can just be like, yeah, now he's just a guy. And you like things that plug into things, right? So
yeah.
So he's got this hose that plugs into the side of his mask, and this hose on the front that plugs into
that's there.
Yeah. I don't know if I get it, but anyway, yeah, it's very cool. So yeah, I don't have it quite in right, but that hose goes in, that hose goes in.
Yeah, that's cool. I like it. Yeah, I don't know what head I'll display him with whenever Walmart sends them to me.
I know, if this guy was a little more readily available, or
you'd buy two?
I would maybe buy two.
Oh, fuck, maybe you could order another one and get it before I get my first one.
But that's the problem with these Walmart exclusives, is It's not like you can just go on Walmart's website and buy them. They sell it instantly, and then I don't know how you're supposed to get more of them if you wanted more of them. Like, we have another couple of Walmart pre-orders in now, right? With Shadow Tracker and Tunnel Rat, I think.
Although I did see those available on Hasbro Pulse. So if they are still available, I might switch my order because I seem to have better luck with them.
Yeah. But, like, this guy here, he's kind of like a nod to, I would say, several characters. Like, there was a Cobra Trooper that I really liked as a kid called the Toxo Viper.
Yes.
And he was the kind of guy that dealt with toxic gases, and he had a gas mask and all that sort of stuff. And then there was also, this was after my time, but in the 90s they did like a Toxo Viper version too, and they had a guy who'd been exposed to toxic gases, and it's half his face was, or his mask was ripped off, and you could see a zombie face underneath, and one of his hands was off, and one of his boots was off, and he had like purple skin or whatever, and he was called a Toxo Zombie. Mm-hmm. And then in the 4-inch line, they straight up had a character called a Zombie Viper, which was like, you know, looked like this guy. So there is definitely precedent for them to kind of have this zombie thing happening, but I think it's kind of weird that they didn't call him a Toxo Zombie or a Zombie Viper. You know, they just Mole Rat.
So how are you going to display him with this, or are you going to keep him with the disgusting growth?
I don't know. I think I might lean into the gas mask.
Yeah.
But the face is just so unique. It's a shame to just throw it in my spare parts bin. I would like to be able to display it. And like, I don't know how it would fit on. Maybe I could test it before I try it. But like, let's say I can never find another Mole Rat again. Maybe they're impossible. But yeah, like if I go into Toys R Us and I buy, like, just say they have a Python Patrol Cobra Trooper left, I could maybe buy that and stick this on him, and I could have a zombified.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know if the head would fit on the peg or not, but yeah, it's just a shame to let this head go to waste because it's really unique. But he also came with this weapon. I don't know what the hell. It's like a drill, but I don't know if it attaches on the end of his gun or something. Like, it looks like it should.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you saw that. He's got this flashlight.
Yeah, that's super cool.
So, yeah, he's a cool figure. Hopefully you get one.
Well, I should. I pre-ordered at the same time. I will say that when Mike posts pictures on Instagram, yeah, I usually comment occasionally. If not, I like it, and he knows that I read it and enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. I've really enjoyed Chirpin' Walmart over the last, like, several ones that I haven't gotten. You have.
Yeah.
Like, I wish at Walmart would get their fucking act together. I'm really hoping they would comment, but they don't. They probably get millions of comments a day.
They don't care about your
they don't care about
that you didn't get your doll.
Poor old Chad Murphy here.
Yeah. So anyway, that's it. Those are our new G.I. Joes. A good haul. Like, of those few, I don't think the AlleyViper or Mole Rat would be contenders for my best of, just because the AlleyViper is just a repaint. The Mole Rat, he's cool, but I don't know the nostalgic tie. If he was a Toxo Viper or something, he would have a better chance. But Shooter, I like a lot. So she's...
Yeah, I think that backstory is really cool. So that might elevate her a little bit more for me.
Yeah, so like 6 new Joes and 4 of them are all potentially on my best of the year list. So yeah, it doesn't save a whole lot of room for Transformers and He-Man on my list this year. But we will see.
We will see.
All right, so we'll be back probably before Christmas, I would guess. Yeah. Even if I'm not with Chad, I still have a couple other toys I got to try and get reviewed and posted before the end of the year, because I don't like to have toys waiting around that I haven't reviewed yet before I consider them for my best of the year list. So yeah, anything I have laying around, I'm going to try and get reviewed before the end of the year. So I'll see you then. Anything else? All right.
No.
All right then. Ciao.
Episode 50, fireworks.
Oh yeah, and like and subscribe and all that stuff. Ciao.